Welcome back, everyone. I'm Nala.
And I'm Faith.
And this is the Sirens Den, your fandom podcast where we talk all things pop culture under the sun.
On today's show, we have one of our favorite people, Luke Antonio.
Returning guests, welcome back.
It's good to be back. I'm glad you guys are back to recording. I've missed this.
Aw.
So, episode we will be talking about the global phenomenon, Squid Game. Yay! I don't think we should be clapping for it. We're going to be talking about, basically everything Squid Games this episode because it is an awesome show. For those of you who have not seen it, we will be doing a spoiler-less review, but I highly recommend y'all go check it out.
Yeah,
spoiler list, then spoiler.
Yes, and then spoilers, obviously, but for sure, go check it out. It won't let you down. It keeps you at the edge of your seat all throughout the whole thing. It's a lot of anxiety.
Yeah, we'll let y'all know when we get to the spoilerly part.
So, how did we all come across Squid Game?
I feel like probably all of us the same way, just reading about it. I just remember seeing it posted everywhere, as soon as it dropped, just so many news outlets, and my Facebook feed was just full of, oh my god, this show, OMG, Squid Games, what?
Yeah,
and I was like, I just gotta check this out then, I guess. And obviously, just like everyone else, we were hooked from the first episode.
I mean, even before that, though, I feel like before it really blew up, I saw the trailer pop up, and I was like, what the heck is this? Probably the same thought that went through everyone else's head throughout the world, but then, yeah, I think I saw the trailer first, and then I started hearing about, all the news and everything on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, kind of similar for me. I started seeing a lot of fan art. I follow a lot of artists who are really into a lot of K-dramas. So I started seeing the fan art of it. I'm like, oh yeah, it's another K-drama, and I don't really watch those, not out of just so much to watch. But then I started seeing outside of those people start talking about it, and I'm like, okay, maybe I'm gonna give this a look. This sounds interesting. And man, oh man, was it something?
Ooh-wee, it took us on a ride. So we're just gonna jump right into it. I give it 4.5 out of 5 squids. I thoroughly enjoyed it. There were obviously, some problems with it, but it was overall wonderfully executed. Everything from the performance to the concept, obviously, to the production design, which is probably my favorite part of the show. They really they took you into this world, and you were just fully into it. And I'm not saying it, but I am saying it. I'm definitely looking at getting myself a guard costume.
I saw so many cosplayers I follow do sexy pink guard outfits for Halloween.
Yep.
Yes.
That tracks.
It was pretty fab.
Could I be a sexy frontman?
I would argue.
Frontman.
I would argue the frontman's already kind of sexy.
He is sexy already. Anything frontman is sexy.
You had the sexy mask. He had the cloak.
Mm-hmm. No, it's just so much to love about this show. It's obviously it's one of those battle royale shows. Who doesn't love a good last man standing type show?
Yeah.
But this kind of took it to the extreme in the sense that the games were so simple, yet the stakes were incredibly high.
Yeah. I really like just the battle royale, last man standing, death game genre things. Or mainly because it's either really profound or really trashy, but either way it's going to be really fun. And I think Squid Game definitely falls on the profound side of things.
For sure.
It's hard to not say something in a battle royale. I feel like you kind of have to, because based on who you're going to kill in the script and whatnot, you're saying messages no matter whether you mean to or not, I feel like.
Yeah, of course. I mean, this is classic, Hunger Games is obviously... Hunger Games and Squid Games are both games that have the same type of message, against capitalism against, you know, the oppression of other people, and like what kind of drives people to kill.
Hmm.
It's obviously like I love seeing this meme where it's like, I'm so glad I'm not in the real Squid Games, and instead I'm in the reality that Squid Games is a metaphor of. Lucky me.
Yeah. And I think another thing that the it does really well, because I think you are right, Ty, is it's some of that messaging is gonna come out in something regardless of what it is. I've definitely some things do it better than others. I don't know if you guys have seen Danganronpa. It's another death
Hmm.
game thing. It's really fun. It's very trashy. It is not profound in the slightest, even though it does have that killing people for entertainment. Um, but one thing I think that it's really important for doing a good death game genre like this is the characters have to be really good. Danganronpa, I think it's popular, even though the story is garbage. The characters are really fun and people can like that. And in this case, the story's really good, but you really do care about these characters. Everyone is so three-dimensional. You can really kind of understand and see the motives for everyone in the show. Uh, and it really, you really attach yourself to these characters, and it just makes it even more devastating when inevitably people don't make it to the end.
In a game like this, you're gonna expect people to die, which is obviously what I went in knowing. But even knowing that, it was so hard not to get attached to them because they were all such good characters.
Hmm.
And like it gets to the point where obviously they start eliminating a large amount of people that obviously we never got to know, and then you're like, oh yay, these people that we love have made it through, and then you realize as that pool gets smaller and smaller, you're like, uh-oh. For me, like I said, for 4.5 out of 5 squids, I really liked it. There was a lot to love about it, a lot, from the writing to the performance to the production design to the acting to the characters, just like a lot of really good stuff.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think I would have to give it probably 5 out of 6 squid arms. Squids, fun fact, they have 2 tentacles and 6 arms. So I didn't just call tentacles arms. That's really what they're called, but 5 out of 6 squid arms. It has phenomenal production design, phenomenal cinematography, phenomenal acting, like just every aspect of it is, I think, incredibly well done. There's very few weak spots in the show. It's very well tight. It's a tight knit story that I think is very profound with what the time that it was given.
I would give it 45.6 billion won.
Which we all learned the
like,
conversion rate of right as watching
yep,
that. Is that a lot of money? Yep, still a lot of money. Okay.
it's 38,122,800 for those that don't know. And I would completely fund a whole another second season if I could, because I loved the show. Like they've been saying, the creative aspects of the storytelling and the production design and all of that was top notch, but also the technical aspects of the editing and the cinematography was really well done too. The actors, I can't wait to see where these actors go, like worldwide now that this has become such a global phenomenon. And also, I got to give props to the creator because his story of like trying to get this made is just like crazy. And if you don't know about it, go read about it because it's very inspiring as a filmmaker.
It's very terrifying as a filmmaker as well.
Terrifying and inspiring, I would say. Yeah, equally, definitely. But you might have to go for it after a while, but your dreams will finally come true, and you'll win your Squid Games of making your series if you just stick with it and survive.
That
Squid
brings
Game
up
of life.
that brings up a great point too. It's like what I really enjoyed about this is it's a new IP, kind of like how when we got Stranger Things. It's a new thing. It's not a remake. It's not a sequel. It's not part of a greater universe. It's a whole new thing that we can learn about together. And I really appreciate seeing a new IP given a chance, kind of a deal.
Yeah, absolutely. And South Korea has just been on top of it lately with Parasite and and Squid Games, and like they're just rocking the
There's one
content and
Mhm.
yeah, the guy who plays Ali. I looked up where I saw him from before, and he's in another South Korean movie called Space Sweepers. So check that out. It's about like miners in space, and like it's still about class warfare and stuff, but it's really good. Fun little sci-fi
nice.
movie.
I like that.
Yeah, so from here on out, it's going to be spoilers for Squid Game. So if you haven't seen it, like I said, go watch it, come back to us. Um, but here we go. We're going to be talking about the deaths that we, got the most upset at, just what we thought about all the twists and turns because it was like, oh, twist, oh, another twist, oh, where is it going? And obviously, it ends on a not really a cliffhanger. It ends on like there's a lot that it ends on. It obviously doesn't completely wrap stuff up, and we're gonna be getting into that as well. So let's get started.
What is Squid Game, Faith?
Yeah, Faith, take it away.
Well, Squid Game is this really fun game where you're a squid person and everyone has a paintball gun and you gotta
No, not
try
that
and
Squid Game.
oh, are we not talking
I
about the
mean,
video
is
game, guys?
Splatoon
Did you
not a
watch the
battle
wrong
royale
show?
type game?
That's the other thing. We talked about how we first discovered it. The other thing is I kept seeing like on my Twitter from the same people like Squid Game, and I thought they were talking about Splatoon for the longest time. Like I'd see the fan art and stuff and be like, "Oh, that looks cool. I wonder what that is." And then I'd see like Squid Game this, Squid Game this, and I'm like, "What is going on with the new Splatoon that's coming out? Like I don't remember any of these." Uh but yes. All right. So our main character, Gi-hoon, he is this down on his luck guy with a lot of debts to people. And then at a train station, he does a card game with a stranger for some money, and he wins. And the guy's like, "Do you want to play some games with some higher stakes?" And this guy's like, "Heck yeah, I want to do some stuff for some higher stakes." And then is immediately knocked unconscious and awakens in what is the Squid Game, which turns out to be a bunch of people who are like him, down on their luck, need the money, are put into children's games to win some prize money, and if they win, they get the prize money. Except if they lose, they're murdered. So pretty much every episode is a different children's game, such as red light, green light, tug of war, and eventually Squid Game, which is a game played by children in Korea, till there's only one of these people alive. It's very much it's last man standing. A lot of people die very, very quickly, and it's great.
Right off the bat, I love our main character, Gi-hoon. I love him.
Mhm.
I really identified with him right off the bat. I love that he had his debts and he had a problem, but he still really loved his daughter, right? And he just wanted to do good by her. And he felt bad for his mom. He tells his mom to stop working so much, even though she's providing for him. Like you can see the sympathy in him a lot. So right off the bat, I loved our main guy.
Yeah.
I will also say that they did a good job of, setting up like the hook with explaining what the Squid Game is, because they're like, we're gonna name it Squid Game. We're gonna tell you exactly how this thing is gonna go by explaining one of the games to you, and then we're gonna throw you into the world, and you'll get to meet all these characters that you're gonna bond with. Yeah, and Gi-hun was definitely one of my favorites as well. I mean, how can you not? The guy is like, he's so lost in his life, and he doesn't know how he quite got there. But then he like, I feel like it was a good self discovery for him through means of life and death, which is kind of something that we've seen in other things before, but not quite like this.
Capitalism. Capitalism's how he got there. They even say it. His people went on strike, and then the cops came in protecting the business, and they killed a man in front of him and everything. So capitalism got him to the point, and then they blamed it on him, and then he can't get a job anymore. So
It's like he's like a lost little puppy kind of. You know, he's even got those like puppy dog eyes, and like that make you like really care for him, and you just want to like give him a hug and like tell him, hey, it's gonna be okay because you're gonna win all this money in the end, and it's all right.
You're just gonna have to kill all these people first,
Mm-hmm.
or like witness all these people die. So, speaking on characters, they just do a really good job in um, making you like really everyone, even the people who turn out to be awful by the end. You still have some sort of pity for them because yeah, like Luke said, and like everyone said, and even the creator, this is a critique on capitalism and how desperate people will become, and what they'll do to other people and how they'll take advantage of other people in the name of life and death, which is that's what life is.
I think that goes into a key moment too, where they chose to come back because the outside world was just as bad. So what does it matter?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, getting some of my favorite characters, um, really everyone. That was actually one of my points, like my sad points in this show, like why I gave it only 4.5 out of 5. Because I kind of wished, and I mean, we'll get to this later when we talk about like the major events and deaths, but player 240, I think.
Guillaume,
Yes,
right?
yes, I believe so. Wanted to see more of her, but that's the thing. That was what was so good about it. Even the characters that we didn't get that much time with, they still fleshed out really well. And it gave you a lot to think about, and it takes you through a lot. It takes you through a lot of different emotions. So we have Se-byuk, who is, the main female character in this as well, who is just this like badass rogue pickpocketer. She actually steals the money that Ji-hun won and kind of screwed him over even before they got to the Squid Games, which is so awesome because they actually end up being allies in the Squid Games and really helping each other out, even to the very end.
Yeah. And I really liked her character and what she brought to the show because one of the big themes of Squid Game is are people naturally just kind of assume a every man for themselves situation, or are they gonna actually help their fellow man? And one of the other big themes of the show is that capitalism kind of puts everybody in this place where they are going to be looking out for themselves like that. We see that when he wins this money that he needs, and she immediately steals it, just from her point at that a stranger. So to see them come together to like face this, only one person can survive at the end of this situation, I think just really kind of highlights her character, and that when it really counts, this is who she is as a person, and
Well,
so
and
gonna team up and do the right thing.
Well, and that's kind of what I was hoping for too. Was you know like, and I felt like the twist could have been like a Hunger Games kind of situation with 456 and the girl. I'm sorry, I'm terrible with the names. But like kind of finding a way to not just like be all one all like for themselves, and finding a way to like partner up and find a way to beat the system together, so that it's not just like you go from only being like it's a survival of yourself, but then it becomes like a communal thing. And I know they touched on that, but I wonder if maybe in season 2 they could find a way to like beat the system that way.
You're saying that, but like that's the whole reason why Sung Woo in the end kills himself is because he knows that this guy's just gonna let us both live and just all that money's gonna be gone. I'd rather let him win than do that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
What do we
I
think?
guess I just want to
Uh,
point out that it follows the hero's journey really well, I think. There was just so many, like from a filmmaker's point of view, there was just like you saw all the beats being hit really well and like so flawlessly from obviously like the refusal of the call where he's like, no, I'm not going to do this. And then obviously the acceptance of the call to action and meeting your allies. Like even in the first game, people were already forming allies and like overcoming hurdles together. Specifically when they're playing red light, green light, and he trips over, or our protagonist trips over a dead body and is about to fall in the time that it's going to take the robot to scan, and most likely kill him, but he gets saved by one of my next favorite characters, which is Ali, who is a force to be reckoned with. Who
Ollie was so
just
good.
like cool as cucumber, just snatches his collar and stops him from falling. And I just thought that that was a beautiful, like, they didn't even talk, they never met ever. They did not talk up to this point, but it was just like you already learned so much about not only Ali, but like what this story is going to be about. And like,
Yeah.
I just think it was really, it really hit the hero's journey really well.
Yeah, one of the things I really liked about Ollie as a character, I think because again, so many of the characters in this were just so good. I think he was one of the best written characters in the thing. A lot of people kind of like portray him of like, oh, he was so naive at the end there, but I think he's a lot more smart than people give him credit for. I think that moment you talk about where he did save this total stranger, because he knew full well it was going to happen if this guy trips. I think he had an incredible amount of emotional intelligence, and just compassion that I think really influenced the other characters in the show that he allied with.
And I also came across it was one of the things they said the translation was wrong. He's calling him Song. They call him and Song Woo start calling each other brother, and but that didn't get translated properly. And so when he's doing the marble game and he's going Sangwoo san or whatever he's saying that last word, he's saying Sangwoo my brother, Sangwoo my brother. And that just goes into that he was not being naive, he was being trusting of someone he thought was family. Um,
Yeah,
and, and family mean a lot to him. That's the one thing we knew about him, right? We met his family. We didn't meet any of the other characters' family really. Sebyuk's um brother, but that was about it.
And another thing about Ali is it touches more on the social status within North Korea as well, and how and it's also very relevant here as well as South Korea. But like how immigrants are treated as they are like coming into a new country, and for Ali to catch Gi-hun, said a lot about like him as a person, because I'm sure he would like somebody to be there to help catch him as he's like struggling through this new home that he's in South Korea. Like, and then you learn more about his tragic life and like how he's ended up here, and he's just, yeah, he is probably one of my favorite characters as well. I mean, he says a lot more on the social status aspects,
Mhm.
along with everything else.
I also think that, much like everyone else's story, they are, a victim to capitalism. And he lost his fingers because his job was, having unsafe practices. And it's like that is something that is still very relevant in real life. So the fact that the fact that he was able to hold him, I believe, with his bad hand, like that must have taken just like not only like physical strength, but just like the will to hold on like as tight as you can. And that's, yeah, so like let's go on to his death, because his was obviously like one of the saddest deaths in the show. It happens later on, I believe, in the fourth game, which is marbles.
yeah,
Yeah, and um he gets killed, but it was a wrongful kill. Like he was cheated into being killed. because he won the game. The plot of the sixth game was marbles, so they could play any game. It just had to be a game in which one character needed to acquire the other player's marbles, all of them. And so it was one of those episodes where and I mean we'll get to the games, but each game has a specific amount of people that get eliminated. And in marbles it was going to be one or the other, so it came down to him and Sung Woo because they partnered up. Um and he won all of the marbles, but Sung Woo cheated him and swapped out his marbles for a bag of rocks. So Sung Woo had all the marbles, and that meant that Ali got killed, and it was just such a heartbreaking moment.
He tricked him so bad too. It was
Uh-huh.
it was totally like he was about to lose. He started freaking out. So he's like, "We can win together, right? Just go scope. We can do this together. We're family." And he took advantage of the best quality of Ali on the show is he was the most caring, and he totally took advantage of that.
Yeah, I think it was a really I think it also highlighted a lot of Sang Woo's character. And
Mm.
especially compared to Ollie's actions earlier in the show. Again, when we meet Ollie, he helps our main character from tripping. He sees a person who is about to lose this game, and chooses to help them out in that dire because especially because him moving to catch him risked himself as well. So he took a situation where he was winning and risked himself to help someone else, where Sung Woo kind of did the opposite. And I think it really kind of showed their what makes them like unique individuals and what made them those characters tick in comparison to each other really well. Like
And
And
on top of they were good foils for each other. Um,
They were.
well, and to speak on Sung Woo, as well as I want to point out the fact that there was a married couple as well, because I think the whole thing is like it doesn't matter if you're married or if you're friends or what you're like. The system is designed for a survival of the strongest, of the survival of the fittest. And the thing with Sung Woo is they kept saying he is a genius. He went to college. He's like this giant intellect, and like he used that to his advantage, which is something that we see again in real life. Is like how somebody's education can be used as a strength against others who don't have that same satisfaction. But what is the downside to that too? You know, he used it to his strength, but his intelligence is also kind of a weakness because it takes over his heart. You know, so just to add to Sung Woo and just the system as a whole, it's like it doesn't matter who you are. There's only gonna be what like the 2% who rise to the top, or in this case, it's one person um, who's gonna get everything. But that was another reason I said, I was kind of hoping they would find a way to beat the system, because that's something that I'm always looking to beat the system. And I would love that to become like something that happens later on, maybe. But it doesn't. The power of community over the power of one person. Anyway, I'll stop my tangent.
uh, to add to Song Woo, I guess we'll move on to his character next. Um, to think that that episode where he tricks Ali was him basically crossing over to the dark side. He's a shapeshifter essentially, because you thought he was an ally, but even before that, in back in the second game, he figured out what the game was. Which, you know what, I'll use this moment to say I did love the foreshadowing in this show, specifically the fact that when you get to the final players, you realize that all of the games were on the walls the entire time. And so everyone was freaking out over not knowing what the next game was. It was, it was right there the whole time, which I absolutely loved. Again, I take that back to production design, which was excellent. But I was just going to say, like, Song-woo was able to figure out what the second game was. And he could have used that to aid the rest of his, teammates. Because, Ji-hun actually asks him, did you figure out what the game is? And he lied and told him no. And he did that because that would increase his chances. If Ji-hun didn't end up making it, it would just increase Song-woo's chances. So we already saw the signs of him kind of being a villain already from the second game. Truly seeing the extent of where people will go to achieve, for the money. At the end of the day, it's all for the money. Once again, all victims of capitalism. That's basically what the whole show is. It's also about, like, the exploitation of people, with the fact that another subplot of this is the fact that there are higher ups who have the money, who are just betting on all these players. They're betting on people's lives as if it doesn't mean anything to them. It's there's a lot.
I think Song-woo is a perfect example of kind of the message that the show was trying to get at. So we keep kind of talking about that the whole thing is a critique on capitalism. But the message is pretty clearly that the only way to, like, survive this system is to, like, work together as a community. The reason Sung-woo died is because he didn't want to do that. He was in it for himself for the beginning, and that was ultimately what led to his end.
I think he has a change of heart though, because he knows that Gihon won't win unless he kills himself. So he does the self-sacrifice in the end. Like, he does kill himself.
He does kill himself at the end, but at that point he learns that he needed to ally himself with these people. It was very much his lack of willingness to do that from the beginning is kind of what got him into this situation. He would rather die as an individual than come out with an ally. So yeah, I think he was a really good example in the fact that we could kind of see that was his fatal flaw, was being in it for himself, and that the key to surviving the situation was to work together. And we see that message kind of come up a lot more through the show too. We definitely see that at the end when what's his bitch face makes the bet with Gi-hun that homeless man outside is going to freeze to death and no one's going to help him. Il-nam. Yeah.
On the topic of Il-nam, he was a character that I hated, but I loved how he was written. He's like a Loki. He was just so cunning and, like, even like both if they ever did like a prequel of like how he devised this entire thing, like he had us all like sobbing when when he was killed, and it's just like it's so devious, and he's such a great antagonist, like secret antagonist. I thought that was a great twist with him. But yeah, I know people don't like him. He was a character that I love to hate, but I just thought he was really well written.
Anything else? Sabyuk or Duxu? You want to do either one of those?
Yeah, I guess we didn't really talk much on Sabyuk. So obviously loved her. She was really awesome. I loved how, her story is the fact that she is also an immigrant, essentially, from North Korea. And, stuff's weird over there. And, she just talks about how it really isn't much better in South Korea either. Partially because of the two, she's looking after her brother, who's currently in an orphanage, which, that's what fuels her, and that's why she's a pickpocket. So it's like, even from the beginning, she never stole his money because, just for the hell of it. She was also doing it for her family. I think family was another big part of this show. We get a lot of just a lot of stories with family from the characters in Squid Games to the characters outside of Squid Games.
Even
Um,
Song Woo, who's being all ruthless, is really doing it for his mom.
Mm-hmm.
exactly. So it's like I loved her. I loved her story, and I loved what she was capable of doing. She was also very smart. You know, the fact that when they get called back to the Squid Games after being released, essentially, she found a way to avoid being knocked out by the gas, and she was able to like slip a weapon in, and that you know she's smart about what she does. She blends in so well. She uses a South Korean accent very flawlessly, but you know that it's like she's walking on thin ice, um, because she gets caught and like almost barely escapes so many times. But absolutely loved her. Her death was also such a heartbreaking one.
Yeah.
um, she didn't deserve it.
I
Oh,
think that was the one that got me the most, not gonna lie. Up
yeah.
until that point, because we talk about how the show had so many twists and turns, and I think all of us had like this secret hope that they were gonna figure out like these last couple of people to come together
Hmm.
in the end and overcome it and
I
escape and
agree.
the teamwork. And I think one of the brilliant parts about the twist is that they set up that expectation to happen, but no, they can't escape this game together. It's last man standing, the inevitable happens. I thought it was so good.
Obviously, she dies at the hands of Song Woo, who has just obviously crossed the line. Um, but it says a lot about the characters, especially towards the end, after Ji-hun ends up winning. You know, we get the backstory of all the other characters, including more of Se-byuk's character when she's in the same Marble episode when she's playing with another player who, again, I just wish we got more of. Especially when she and Ji Young have their conversation. It was a really beautiful episode, very beautifully shot. The whole episode was supposed to be like it was staged to look like a neighborhood at sunset, golden hour. So pretty. um and they had a conversation where they really got to know each other really well, and that was the first part that got me. That was the first, dare I say, marble that was cast for me to just start crying at that episode. She meets this other player, and the player essentially sacrifices herself for Se-byuk to win because of her brother.
I
And
love that because they decide to do it like we're just gonna play whoever throws the marble closest to the wall, right?
mhm,
And they're like, well, if it's all or nothing, we can just wait 30 minutes. Like we don't need to play right now. And yeah, you're right. That conversation was just so beautiful, and that's when I bawled as well because then she just drops the marble
mhm.
and she's and the whole "thank you for playing with me" line.
Oh,
Holy cow!
devastating. Which
Ugh.
is why I just wish we saw more of her. I do wish she was an ally that was established, because that was established earlier on. We got more of like Han Mineo than we did of her, which I felt was kind of unfair. But also just kind of plays into the fact that even though she did not know her for that long, was still willing to do that for someone else and like sacrifice herself. Um, so it's nice to know that in the end, when Ji-hun does win, he does end up taking care of not only what he hoped would be his family, kind of. Obviously, the very ending is um, a
Yeah.
little debatable on that, but he takes half the money and he does help out Se-byuk's family as well as Sang-woo's family. So in a way, even though they ended up dying, he still made true on his promise of taking care of their families,
Mhm.
which I
Mhm.
think again says a lot about him.
Yeah. And it kind of
But
goes back into that, the key to this is looking out for each other as a community
Hmm.
message.
Exactly.
So you mentioned her. We have one character left, and it's Crazy Lady.
I love her. Uh,
Yep.
I like Ilnam is definitely a love to hate character, but oh my goodness, she is 100% a love to hate character. I loved every second she was on screen, even when she was the worst. And I was super bummed when she got her end, because she made it fun. Um,
Yeah, she was just wild enough. She had this weird energy to it. If she kept good on her promise with the one, I guess there's one more character who represents like pure strength and capitalism, and see it didn't really work out for him because he ends up getting backstab. What was that guy's name? Backstabbed by the one that he betrayed, which was her.
I she definitely did grow on me. I do like how she was introduced because she was actually the first one to kind of throw herself down on the ground and plead for her life, saying that she has a child and she hasn't even named them yet. And she needs to go back home for that. And then you find her back in the Squid Game. So you're like, how much of her story was true? Obviously, she was willing to lie, basically lie, cheat, and steal her way to where she got to.
mhm.
Obviously, she joins up with the villain crew at first, which is led by Duk Soo.
Duxu.
Yeah,
Also,
Duk
great acting
Soo.
on that guy's part. I mean, I believe
Yes.
that bully.
Yeah, no, absolutely. He was the quintessential bully the whole time. He was the antagonist for a lot of it. Before, plot twist, it was actually Sung Woo who was low key the villain the whole time. And then twist, which we'll get to later. Um, but she was with him and then defected over to the Allies side and did help them win game win a game. She so I guess like going into the third game, which was tug of war, that was another game in which they eliminated a huge amount of players because they had 6 teams and only one of the teams would win, and they each had 10 people on their team. So that's when she started to go with the Allies and continue to be with them. And the next game with Hopscotch, or 2 games from then, Hopscotch is the 5th game, ends up taking down Duk-Soo, which I'm glad she did because he did do her dirty, and she
I'm
said she'd kill him, and she did.
Yeah, because he represents the ruthlessness of capitalism, right? He's going to assemble the greatest team every time. Doesn't matter who he wrongs. But that's the
Hmm.
victim of that, is that you don't know who you're wrong. Sometimes you get vendetful, crazy women who will jump to their death with you just to make a point. I loved
Yep.
her for it.
I guess we can use this time to go into the foreshadowing that they did a lot of in this show. Specifically with just how all of the characters' deaths actually ended up being foreshadowed.
Yeah, this was one of
Like
my
I said
favorites.
in the beginning, where the fact that they had all the games up on the walls from day one, you could have, like, if you did pay attention, you could have figured it out. So that was excellent foreshadowing. You get a lot of foreshadowing on the old man, who's a character that we didn't really delve into, namely because there's a big twist with him.
Mhm.
But you look back and you realize that that twist was very foreshadowed.
Yeah, the Ilnam reveal that he was the one behind everything, it really kind of falls up there with Fight Club plot twist for me, where one of those where it totally takes you off guard, and then you think about it for like a second, and you're like, oh, this obviously makes so much sense. Why did I not figure this out? They've been advertising it for the whole show. And I think they do that with a lot of things. There's a lot of things that, in hindsight, the writing was literally on the wall. It was on the game.
Yeah, they do a lot of great subtextual stuff and foreshadowing. And even his name, Ilnam, means first man. It translates to first man. So, he's got the number 1 shirt on, and you should kind of know. I mean, if you speak the language, maybe you pick up on it sooner. But, like, for the rest of us, it kept us hanging on. And then I cried when he died in the marble game because I thought he was still a good guy. But then I started thinking about it, and I was like, if Game of Thrones tells us anything, if there's not a body, it's not confirmed. And it's like, we've been kind of conditioned to think that way. And I know some of us maybe don't want to think that's going to always be the case, but it is a good device, and I think they used it wisely.
I will say one thing, and I think it was just because I was so exhausted from the death at the time. My one gripe with the show is so he wins the money. He's out of this, he's a rich man, and then he goes home and he finds his mom dead, and he's at his lowest low. Like he won all this money, but it means nothing because his family's dead. But I was just like, come the on. That was and I think it was just because there'd already just been so much that happened for that to be like the final thing like thrown in there.
That was also one of my biggest critiques, was like, there's not really character growth with his daughter. He was gonna go, but then he's like, no, and so it just kind of takes us back to one with that relationship. So maybe they could have like shown him like with his daughter, so we could see some growth. But then he still leaves to go back, and if he's going to infiltrate or whatever in season 2, if that happens. But yes, that's probably my biggest critique.
In addition to all this goodness going down with like the main plot of the players in the Squid Games, we also get a subplot of this cop or detective who is looking for his missing brother, and somehow finds the clues through, Jihoon reporting the Squid Games initially to the police, who don't believe him as usual. Ends up, raising suspicion from this detective who infiltrates, albeit kind of badly, infiltrates the behind the scenes of the Squid Game. So it was really cool seeing the other side of these games, and causing more, like raising the stakes even higher for this character who's not even part of this life or death situation, but is still part of a life or death situation. I really liked the cop story. I do wish he was a little more competent at his job, because he did seem to just like get off, like escape death so easily, but like a lot of the things that put him in that position were kind of his fault.
Yeah, his ability was really just luck until his brother killed him. But up until that point,
Or did he? Again,
yeah,
nobody.
I will say that is one of the we're gonna talk about theories for next season. I think that's a very believable one that guy could come back.
Yeah, I definitely think he's going to come back because, again, nobody, no confirmation. He was okay. I was really frustrated watching him, but I kind of wonder if it's because we've been kind of programmed to like look for only watch James Bond type investigators, detectives, spies, whatever, like people who are like really good at their jobs. And this guy, I felt maybe he's a little more realistic because he wasn't like a super spy. He wasn't like really good at his job, but he did the job, and he did it as good as he could. It was frustrating watching him at times because I was like, don't pick up that phone. Don't go down there. What are you doing? Like I kept yelling at him on the TV. But in retrospect, I do think he's a different kind of detective than we're used to watching, and maybe that's the problem that we had with him, is like we had been programmed to watch only really good, like super sleek people who are super spies, and and he just wasn't.
Fair.
He's not James Bond. He's not, I don't know, Natasha Romanoff. He's not he's not like this like unrealistic character. He's a very realistic detective.
That's very true. And I think the fact that um, we as the audience know a lot more about the situation than he does. So like realistically, of course he's not gonna think, oh yes, and this is where all the rich people from all over the world are dressed as animals in suits and are watching people play games to the death. Like that's not gonna be your first thought going into a situation. So yeah, I think that is a valid, like if this is like something just that the uber rich are doing for fun. It's not going to be in, like you're saying, in his police training. He's not Natasha Romanoff. He does paperwork.
Which rolls us into the
Also,
C plot too, if we want to roll into the C plot, because he almost gets outed because the C plot's going on with a doctor, and his guy who
mhm.
he took the place of actually had a side gig while doing this crazy job.
The doctor's also kind of on a similar level as Sung Woo, where he is like he does have a good education, he does have a good occupation that is going to be like protected as much as possible and utilized for the sake of the people behind the scenes. And that's you kind of wonder like what doctors are treated like in our own real life system. And I think he was also a good character study on 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 the medical system, in real life. That's just my 2 cents.
I mean, I just thought it was interesting that these guards, even with all the like, it was nice to see this behind the scenes look, because you just think of these guards as like stormtroopers who never miss, but you think of them as just like mindless zombies, but they are in fact they're doing this for a reason, and even this job isn't paying them enough, so some of them have to take side gigs harvesting organs for the black market.
I love their PlayStation mass. That was a lot of fun to watch.
I love that the point with the doctor too, when they killed the guy, like they didn't kill him because they were harvesting organs. They were fine with that. It's that you gave someone an unfair advantage. Like if they didn't bring the doctor in, they would have been fine. But since they
Right.
did, that's what created an unfair advantage, so they got killed for it.
Mm-hmm.
Because the guards are cheating the system in their own way, and the system isn't gonna
Was
stand
it?
for that because
Well, but
like strict.
like we're saying, capitalism is fine with you doing that dirty thing as long as you don't affect how we do our business. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
I think it does bring up a really good question of like the complacency of the underpaid guards in this situation. Like, yeah, they're just as broke and destitute as everyone else, but they're also choosing to do this specifically as their job. Like how much accountability do they have versus the people who are running the thing?
I mean, I just think that it was interesting seeing the fact that the guards, again, you think are these these mindless, soulless zombies, but they are also miserable with their job, which makes me wonder if, like, yeah, why would they willingly choose that? Which makes me think maybe they didn't choose it, because of like all the secrecy that goes around. I feel like it's something that they were kind of forced into, because we have that point in the honeycomb game where the guard does take off their mask, and the guy kills him. The guy who took one of the guards guns says, what did they do to you, and eventually just kills himself. That guard ends up dying though because he revealed his face, but he was completely emotionless and was also very young looking. So I'm wondering if, like, in maybe season 2 they will get more into the behind the scenes. I was kind of hoping for the cop to also have an ally on the inside, um, so that we can kind of get a little bit more understanding of where these guards are coming from. But we'll see what they do in the future.
I mean, even though that wasn't like the original intent of the creator, I feel like he could retroactively still pass that off of the card game at the beginning with the recruitment system, and like also with the mask. It almost reminded me of Watchmen and how they're supposed to like cover their face to like keep themselves, safe from, and if there's like consequences if take their masks off. But yeah, I think in season 2 they could still do that with the recruitment system and how the guards are picked.
Yeah.
So again, going off of the foreshadowing of which there was a lot of in this show, the old man's character was very heavily foreshadowed to him being kind of the mastermind of this whole thing. Just the fact that he was able to survive as long as he had was not probably not because he was somehow this like superhuman old man, but because he kind of knew what he was going into, and they would not hurt him. The guards knew that.
But a big example of that for me while you're on that was when during the special game, the night raid, when he yells, please stop, it stops. And I thought
Hmm.
that was the biggest hint, to me at least.
Yeah, so when you find out, he was the one behind this and he's been doing the Squid Games for years. And he did this because he was a rich man who was bored and decided to quote unquote help people by killing them. If not, it's like a win-win situation of if they survive, then maybe they were good enough to survive. And I thought it was interesting the friendship he formed with Jihan, especially since Jihan was there when he died. I kind of felt like he had a hand almost in helping Jihan win because he was kind of testing his worth by befriending him. Jihan it was the last player and he is the first player, and of course they were going to meet up. And I just thought it was and you see more and more, like in the marbles game, how he so conveniently had dementia halfway through the game and forgot that he was what he bet and whether or not he won.
I know
So
when you look back at that now, you know he's playing the whole time, and you're like,
yeah.
you jabroni.
Yep. So I thought it was also very interesting with the final bet, which Jihoon takes because he kind of can't help himself, but it kind of Ilna makes the bet to prove his point that people kind of suck, whether they're in his position of power or no position of power. It's every man for themselves, and no one is going to help a poor, drunk, homeless guy on the street because it doesn't serve them in any way. It doesn't benefit them, so they're not going to do it. And I did love that moment that we kind of are dreading what's going to happen, because if Ilnam was right the whole time, it kind of it'll just prove him right, and we don't want to prove him right. So it was nice to see that Jihan was actually right in thinking that there is still good in this world and people will still make an effort to help out those around them. Because this one person that passed by the homeless guy ended up bringing some cops around to take him somewhere else, somewhere safer than the side of the road.
And then we do get that final, because I think pretty much consistently, except for maybe one episode, each episode had a game between players that they would do. I think the only episode that didn't have that was the second episode, because that's when they all went their separate ways. And
They did do like it could be a form of a game, but they did do yes or no on whether to keep playing, and it boiled down
yeah,
to 51-50. So it's not in
Well,
the
the
game like we're thinking, but I would chalk that up to an event kind of a game.
real life surviving in real life is the game. That's the ultimate game, right? But I will say that Ilnam did not have dementia as much as it was a brain tumor, which I think is also a valid foreshadow, because if he's the brains behind the whole thing and he died of a brain tumor, that is also as ironic as any of the other deaths, in my opinion.
Ooh, yeah,
Mm.
that's absolutely accurate. I didn't even think of that. Yeah, that's pretty symbolic.
Mm-hmm.
I thought he was gonna Willy Wonka at the end there and just be like, "Now you own the Squid Games."
I know everyone hates Ilnam, but I think he is really well written.
100%. He's a very well written character. I was just also happy to see him die.
Yeah. As soon as he said he was bored, I was like, "I'm done with you." You did it.
Um,
You did this because you were bored.
yeah,
He,
I kind of switched to Team Tumor on that one.
like, he established the games because he was bored, but he didn't. But then he decided to play because he knew he was at the end of his life, right? He didn't decide to play because he was bored, right?
Yeah, but he didn't also play fairly. He was marked, right? He wasn't on the scanners for red light, green light.
Mhm.
When he said to stop the
Right.
raid, they stopped the raid. They didn't shoot him in marbles. He knew how to
Mhm.
beat tug of war, right? Like he has an unfair advantage when the whole point was everybody's equal except number one. He's
Yeah,
special.
everyone else in that game was doing it for survival, and he was like, "It seems like a fun thing to do."
Yeah, it's a fun thing to
Like
go out on.
the casualness of these life or death situations, I think, is what really got me. Of just like it's like playing games with my friends again. That's not what's happening here.
This
Except my friends died.
So I heard a great theory because I rewatched this show, and Ilnam recognizes the town, and so does our main guys. He recognizes the town too. He's like, "Oh, I think I grew up here," and so is he related to Ilnam, and that's why
Oh
he
yeah.
was marked and special.
Yeah, yeah. I heard stuff potentially about Ilnam and Jihan being related. I can definitely see that. For season two, obviously the season ends with Jihan actually maybe taking control of his life, actually using the money, half of which he gave to Sangwoo and Sebyuk's family, and then the other half he's using to dye his hair and get some nice clothes and finally maybe make an effort to be a better father until he gets to the airport and sees the what don't people call him card daddy
I've seen that name pop up a few times.
see him playing the card game once again with a down on his luck schmuck that Jihan tries to stop but can't reach. He doesn't get there in time. The card guy kind of disappears. I hope to see more of him potentially in season two. I
So
kind of wanted more of him as well.
he's South Korea's Brad Pitt. That's what
I
I heard.
figured he would be. Like he struck me as South Korea's Brad Pitt.
Yeah, so that's why everyone, if they were saying if you're from South Korea, that'd be like casting Brad Pitt and kind of doing nothing with him, just kind of letting
Yeah,
him be
damn.
this guy who was just there for a moment. And so now you're of course you'd want to see more of him.
Brad Pitt was like in Deadpool 2 for like 2 seconds to make a joke.
Yeah, but we used him properly here where it's set up where you would think, like we were saying though, for predictions on season two, he's gonna come back around because he's a big name actor and the mystery of the recruiter is a pretty big mystery.
Mhm. I what I would like to see in season so, before he gets on the plane, he calls the number on the back of that card that he initially got to join the Squid Games. And he tells him who he is, just like he did in the beginning. And then he gets on the phone with the front man, who I know is also a very big South Korean actor. Um, I also want to see more of him. So, like I said, I don't think the detective is done because I don't think the story with him and the front man is done. Obviously, the front man was shown to have some sort of regret and remorse for shooting his brother. So I think that's probably going to get brought up again.
He did shoot him in the shoulder too,
Yeah,
which
you're
is
not.
movie 101. You didn't die from that.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So you see Jihoon decide to not get on the plane to go see his daughter, even though he told her he's going to let her know when he lands. Once again, just kind of being a crap dad, but is kind of he walks back off the plane in determination after being warned by the front man not to come after them. Jihoon makes just makes the decision to take them down. So I think season two has a lot of potential to be him also infiltrating, maybe linking up with the detective again if he's not dead, and actually forming a plan to take the Squid Games down.
They did say in an interview that the main idea for season two would be instead of recruiting players, it'd be how they recruited the soldiers. And so someone would be indoctrinating
Yeah.
that, and then you would have the
So
B plot of Gihan, I guess, going on in the background, right?
I
I
got
also
you.
wonder if the kind of talking about people who we might see in the next season, I almost wonder if we're going to see the homeless guy that we saw at the end here, if he's going to maybe come back as either a player or a guard. Because he's kind of a character that we already have a little bit of establishment with the audience with, and that we kind of care about a little bit. So I think that would be kind of a smart return to one kind of thing. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and he'd be an interesting person to kind of explore this idea of who is a guard.
I just think we have so there are a couple things. One, we don't know what happened to the Squid Games. It seems like they're still going on even after Ilnam passed away. So who's running it now? Did it get did it get passed down to the front man? Is it one of Ilnam's sons who we never got to meet? But we heard about. There's still a lot of questions to be answered. So I definitely do think we'll get more of that answered.
The thing that I would love to see in a future season is just maybe broadening the cast and the diversity into like more of a global Squid Game and have like players from other countries all playing against each other, and like maybe there could be like more statement on not just social status but on race as well playing a factor, and like that could be something that they do in a future in season 2 or season 3. I don't know how many planning on doing, but
They did mention that the Korean games are the best games, implying that there's other games.
yeah, so you
Yeah.
have like a Squid Game Olympics.
Especially because they are gonna be able to go incredibly big with whatever they do in the next season, because Netflix is obviously gonna be pouring money into this now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Gonna get the Stranger Things treatment. You see it everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I'm also a little worried that it's gonna lose itself in the next few seasons. I think it would have worked really well as a miniseries. I'm kind of in the camp that I don't need a second season of this. I would be perfectly happy if that this was the whole thing. That it was a miniseries. It said what it needed to say. I think it told a pretty complete story.
But that
So
doesn't work with that doesn't work with the game of capitalism.
but that doesn't work with the game of capitalism, I think. Which it's always really Um, it's such a cycle because kind of the what's the thing where it did really well because it was so relatable on just a global scale. So that now there's going to be a lot of corporate interference for just who owns it because now people can make money from it. I don't know. Is it going to lose itself? We'll have to wait and see. But I am kind of in the it would be fine as it is without a second season camp. Um, but we know it's been confirmed to get a season 2, so we'll just have to like wait and see.
Definitely. I mean, I think it could work as a miniseries too, but I also think there are some loose ends that they could tie up with another season. And I think it's got a lot of potential for growth and expansion beyond just a miniseries.
It's not my fault you left it a little open ended.
Yeah.
You didn't
And I
tie
think
that bow tight enough.
yeah, and they did leave it open-ended specifically to try and get that season 2, and I do recognize that. But I don't know. I think when I'm a big fan of media that it can say what it needs to say and then exit gracefully. And I think they
Same
did
with
that
movies,
really well
right?
with the first season. Like, I think, yeah, there's the loose ends of the Squid Games are still going on, but I don't need to see and now we're gonna team up to destroy it. Which, while I want that, I think just the fact that it was this rich people's plaything, using the poor's for their own entertainment. Again, they told the story that they needed to tell, and I almost feel like adding to it is going to diminish what they did in the first season. I could be very well be wrong, and the fact that they did leave it kind of open ended for season 2, they might know how they want to continue the story, and that would be great. But I'm also I don't know. I'm hesitant.
I think Ty mentioned the rich people. I mean, that alone, they got to get what's coming to them like before this thing can end too, right? We can't just let them get away with this shit. And like,
But wouldn't that be the moral of all of it, though? Is that capitalism will always win, and that's kind of the message. Like,
Well,
you
that's
can't
it.
beat
but
it.
then
Like,
there's
Because as
come
much money
together
as
and
he
fight.
has, as much money as Gihan has, these guys have way more than that. Like they can disappear you. I don't know.
okay. So then he can go and find the past winners, and they can all like team up against the wealthy elite and like bring down the system. And
But
that's
I feel
how the
like
whole
that goes
thing.
into what Faith's saying, though. Does
Yeah,
that feel like the heart of Squid Game, though? That didn't
that's
feel like
not
a.
yeah, that's not the story that they were trying to tell.
Well, there's got to be a story arc, right?
Well, yeah, and we got that art. Going in and like beheading all these rich assholes would be great. That's I don't know. That's not the story being told here. I think it's very much they're kind of the higher upper power that we can't really do anything against, but we have each other and we can kind of team up with each other and help each other out because we're who's most important here. I don't know. I would love to see that, but I feel kind of turning it into this big revenge thing is
It doesn't feel
we're
like
gonna
the story.
it
Yeah, I
doesn't it doesn't
agree.
feel
Well, no,
like
then what is Jihan doing leaving the plane? What is he gonna go do? Like,
I think he's
Go
gonna go
spend
fight
time
the
with your
man
daughter.
and fail miserably. That's what I think.
we'll have to wait and see. I could very much, and I think it's a very likely thing that I'm incredibly wrong here and that they're gonna comfortably be able to take it into even new and better places. But I'm also I'm happy with the story that was told and I don't need more.
You know, but it happened in like Hunger Games, and it's happened in other
Yeah,
similar
Hunger Games ended terribly.
stories
And I don't
where,
think
but
that's the story being told here. We were rooting for her to win over the evil bullies. It wasn't that everybody playing the Hunger Games loved each other, and maybe we
uh,
shouldn't try to kill each other.
feel like there was a super hopeful note that Squid Game ended on, and that was the person helped the homeless person, and that people do care for each other, and that's the key.
on a
I thought
very,
like the fact that the last game was that, and that was the message. I thought that was incredibly profound.
but that's on like a very minute scale, like
Yeah,
versus
I
like,
love that it ended on like this. The last game was this game of morality on just such a quiet, snowy day, as opposed to this big entertainment that he like put up for himself. That the last game was this intimate, um, just test of the will of the human person outside of the Squid Games in this real context. I don't know. I thought there was something so powerful and hopeful on and the person came back to help the homeless person because and in the end he died and he lost. I don't know. I think again, I think you're right. They can do some cool things with it, but I don't need that. I think they told the story that really well with what they had. But I am with you and I will watch the heck out of anything they do with it because they did it really well and even though I have my doubts, clearly this property as it is right now is in good hands.
so that brings us to basically the end of our thoughts on Squid Games. Yeah, it's a great show. There's really just like a lot to pull from with it. Just super awesome and well done show. And I personally am also excited to see where they take it. I think sure we're in this weird time where we can both simultaneously understand that like something can stand on its own, but also if we're going to be watching Squid Games, the second season of Squid Games, then we are going to also be buying into what it's about, or like we're going to be like proving the point on what it's on. They're kind of just like pandering to what we want. Like we say we want a self-contained story, but at also we do want to see more.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm just excited to see where they take it because they did, and as you said, Ty, they opened up this new IP that I think can go pretty far. It's gonna be hard to just keep the hype for this going with one season. if it was such a big global phenomenon, you know. But I still, you know, really enjoyed it. Highly recommend y'all check it out, and glad we got to talk about it because there's again just a lot to talk about.
Thank you so much to Luke Antonio for coming down and watching Squid Game with us, or talking about Squid Game with us. You only watched it with one of us. It's always a
Thank you,
blast
guys.
it's always a blast to talk with you about anything. So this was super awesome.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, it's always great talking with you. So thank you, Faith. Thank you, Nala. Thank you, Ty. I hope to come back and chat with you more about other content in the future.
We can definitely make that happen.
And if you have a topic you think we should look at, you should comment on our Facebook page or send us an email at sirensdenpodcast@gmail.com.
Be sure to catch future and previous episodes on Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. I totally skip on that script there. I'm just realizing.
All good, no worries.
Yay, dyslexia! Woohoo!
Thank you to Ty, our producer, and to Sean Thomas at buzzstudio.com for our theme song.
Bye.
Bye.